Welcome to the Tubule Original Podcast. Today's English explainer is set at the A2 to B1 level, and we are so glad you're here. Today, we're diving into the incredible story of the world's biggest sports brand, Nike. We're going to look at their humble beginnings as a tiny startup, the massive public relations crisis they faced, and how they totally transformed themselves. You'll see how they tackled the huge challenge of becoming an eco-friendly business and how they actually turned that green pivot into a major competitive advantage.
Here's our roadmap for today's story. Number 1, the birth of Nike. 2, the sweatshop crisis. 3, fixing the supply chain. And finally, 4, the move to zero. Let's jump right in.
Part 1. The birth of Nike.
So let's travel back to the 1960s. Long before the world knew that famous swoosh logo, things were incredibly simple. In 1964, a track athlete from the University of Oregon named Phil Knight and his coach, Bill Bowerman, started a little company called Blue Ribbon Sports. At first, they didn't even make their own shoes. They just imported affordable, high-quality running shoes from Japan. But eventually, they decided to make their own. In 1971, they changed their name to Nike, named after the Greek goddess of victory. Fast forward a bit, and the innovation really started flowing. In 1979, they introduced air cushioning technology, which was actually created by a NASA engineer. Then came the ultimate game changer in 1984, signing basketball legend Michael Jordan. That endorsement deal literally skyrocketed their growth. Now, here's a mind-blowing fact for you. That iconic swoosh logo, the one representing a brand worth roughly $90 billion today, it was originally designed by a graphic design student named Carolyn Davidson for just $35. Yep, $35. They did give her some company stock much later on, but it really shows you just how small they were when they started out.
What really set Nike apart from everyone else wasn't just the shoes, though. It was how they talked to people. They didn't just sell rubber and laces, they sold stories, emotions, and pure motivation. When they launched the Just Do It slogan in 1988, it became one of the most powerful ad campaigns in history. It wasn't about the product, it was about pushing your own limits.
Part 2. The sweatshop crisis.
But with massive success often comes massive scrutiny. In the 1990s, a really stark contrast came to light. On one hand, the company was reporting record-breaking profits and handing out multi-million-dollar deals to athletes. But on the other side of the world, journalists and activists found that workers in Indonesian factories making these products were being paid as little as 14 cents an hour. That was even below the local minimum wage.
This sparked a massive, global public relations crisis. University students staged hunger strikes to force their schools to boycott the brand. Feminist groups launched Just Don't Do It campaigns, highlighting that most of these factory workers were women. Undercover groups like Team Sweat investigated the factory conditions. And the absolute peak of this crisis hit in 1996, when a magazine published a photo of a 12-year-old boy in Pakistan hand-stitching a Nike soccer ball. That single image shocked the whole world.
Part 3. Fixing the supply chain. Faced with this intense global backlash, the company simply couldn't look the other way. They had to completely change how they did business. First, they created a strict code of conduct called SHAPE, focusing on safety, health, attitude, people, and the environment. Then, they stopped using dangerous chemicals in their manufacturing processes. They began conducting hundreds of independent audits to check on factory conditions. And in a really bold move in 2005, they became the first company in their industry to voluntarily publish the names and addresses of all their global factories. They opened their doors and embraced transparency.
Part 4. The move to zero.
This brings us to the modern era. Today, Nike isn't just trying to fix past mistakes. They've realized that being eco-friendly is actually a massive competitive advantage. Enter the Move to Zero campaign. This is their long-term project to become a zero-carbon and zero-waste organization. The goals are super ambitious. We're talking about running their own facilities on 100% renewable energy by 2025 and making sure absolutely zero manufacturing waste ends up in a landfill. And the reality is, they have to do this to stay on top. The sportswear market is fiercely competitive when it comes to sustainability. Nike is constantly battling it out with rivals like Adidas and Puma for the best environmental scores. They are all fighting to win over today's eco-conscious consumers. Going green isn't just a nice bonus anymore, it is the main battleground for winning and keeping customers.
So what does this actually look like in the shoes you buy? Well, they've come up with some incredible technology. Take Flyknit, for example. By knitting the shoe upper from yarn instead of cutting and sewing multiple pieces, they reduce manufacturing waste by 60%. Then there's the Space Hippie line, which is made of at least 90% recycled material. It literally turns trash into brand new sneakers. And fly leather? It takes leftover natural leather scraps, mixes them with synthetic fibers, and creates a highly durable material that's so much better for the planet.
Here is the big takeaway. Why does all this environmental effort matter for the business? Well, doing good for the planet is a huge competitive advantage. Less waste means lower manufacturing costs. These innovations make their whole supply chain way more efficient. Plus, it builds intense brand loyalty. It directly gives modern consumers exactly what they are asking for: responsible products. They took the massive challenge of going green and turned it into a highly profitable, winning business strategy.
So, looking back, it's been an amazing journey, right? From selling shoes out of a car trunk through a devastating global controversy, all the way to becoming a pioneer in green technology. But it leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. In a world obsessed with fast fashion and buying more stuff, can a giant global corporation truly reach zero waste? Are we looking at the future of sustainable business or just the beginning of a whole new set of challenges? Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.